Welcome everyone as we learn the Chok Yisrael for Achrei Mos, Yom Sheni, day 2. Again, we'll continue learning from my Refuah Shalema, my Shmei ben Esther Fradel, and for Rivka Bashira Leah, they should have a Refuah Shalema, B'Seich Shar Chila Yisrael. V'lokach eshnei aseirim, the Kohen Gadol takes the 2 twin he-goats, v'hemido sam lifnei Hashem, and stands them up before Hashem, Pesach Oyel Moed, by the door of the temple entrance. V'yasev yastrein tzfirin, v'yokim yason kodam adinoi b'sra mashkan zimna. V'nosan Aaron al shnei aseirim goyrolos, and Aaron, who we will see, takes out, he puts one goat to his right, one goat to his left. He takes out from the kalpe, from the chest, 2 lots. Goyrel echad la'Hashem, he puts one on the right goat, the Goyrel echad la'Azaz, and one on the left goat. And whichever one says la'Hashem is the goat to go into the Kodesh Kodashim, and whichever one says Azazel is the one that goes off the cliff. V'yiten Aaron al train tzfirin advin ad v'chod l'shma d'adignoi v'ad v'chod la'azazel, says Rashi, v'nosan Aaron al shnei aseirim geirolos, he puts on the 2 goats lots. Ma'amidan echad l'yamin v'echad l'smol, he puts one goat to his right, one goat to his left. V'noisin shtei yodav b'kalpe, he puts his 2 hands into the chest. V'noitel geirel b'yamin, he takes out one lot in his right, v'chavera b'smol, and the other lot on his left, v'noisin aleim, and he puts them on the 2 heads of the goats. Eshe kasabo l'shem, the one that says l'shem, who l'shem, that's the chatas l'Hashem, v'eshe kasabo l'Azazel, and the one that says l'Azazel is mishtalach l'Azazel, is sent off the cliff by Azazel. Azazel, who har eiz v'kasha, or har oiz v'kasha, is a mighty and harsh a mountain, Tzukavaya, with a very high cliff, Shenema Eretz Gezerah, a piece of earth that's cut, Chatucha, right? So it's cut and it has a precipice, it has a cliff. But says the Pasuk, V'ikr v'Aaron asasah asher olav ha'goyel la'Hashem, Aaron brings the soil which has upon it the goyel la'Hashem, v'asol chatas, and he declares it la'Hashem l'chatas. V'karv Aaron yatzvir d'salak alo yad v'lishmod adinoi, v'yavdinei chatasa v'asol chatas, Rashi says, k'shemaniach ha'goyel olav, when he places the goyel of la'Hashem upon it, goyel la'Hashem, he calls it with Hashem's name, v'omer la'Hashem chatas, it is for Hashem a sin offering. And the sar that the lot came upon it, la'azazel, yomad chai, it is stood up, lifnei Hashem, lechaper olav, they will confess on it, the Kohen Gadol will confess on it, leshalach oisoi la'azazel amidbar, to send it to its death, to Azazel in the desert. Tzvir the Salak Aloi Adval Azazel, Yitakim Kadchai Kadam Adinoi the Kapara Aloi the Shalcha Yosei La Azazel Matbara, says Rashi grammatically Yomad Chai Kemo Umad Chai, it should be stood up alive. Al Yedei Acherim V'Taguma Yitakim Kadchai, it stood up as it lives. When it stood up, it lives. You send it to Azazel. Is it just sent to Azazel, or it's sent to its death? It stood up while it's standing, it's alive. While it's standing, it lives until it's sent. It's sent to its death. Lechaper olav, what does it mean to be mechaper upon it? She is vada olav. The Kohen Gadol is misvada on the head of the Azazel. K'dichsiv is vada olav. The Rambam says that this is one of the only things in the entire Torah that's mechaper without tshuva. The Sar Azazel is mechaper without tshuva. Our learning of it should be mechaper without tshuva. And now we start the Navi Yecheskel. This is a very grim nevuah of Yecheskel. where he's talking about the sins that brings the doom to Yerushalayim. Of the aim heikalovach, you took lightly the respect of your father and mother. Lager asu ba'oshik b'seichech, you oppressed the ger in your midst. Yasem v'almana hanuvach, and the orphan and the widow you gave pain. Kachai bazisa, you despised my holy things. V'eshabsoisai chilot, and you desecrated my Shabbos. Anshe rachel hayavach, you had talebearers amongst you, spreading slander. Laman shvach dam, with the aim of creating murder. Ve'el haharim achluvach, and to the mountains. In other words, you practiced idolatry. You ate that which is upon the mountains. You practiced idolatry. Zima asu b'seichech, and you committed promiscuity and immorality in your midst. Ervas of gilavach, you uncovered the nakedness of your father's wife. Tmeas hanina inavach, and you neglected the tumah of a menstruant wife. Now, from the wisdom of Shlomo HaMelech had said, what we learned on the first day of Achrei Mos, that you should help even your enemies. When you do that, you should know that's like, for your enemy, it's like eating crow. By him having to take help from you, you're putting coals upon his head, and perhaps that will cause him to do tshuva. V'Hashem yeshamulmach, even though it's hard to help your enemy, Hashem will reward you. Just like ruach tzafin t'chayil geshem, just like the northern wind brings rain, upanim nizamim l'shayin saser. A face of anger from Hashem is caused by a tongue that speaks in secret bad about others. Toiv sheves al pinas gog. The Shekhinah would rather go away and be on the corner of the roof, me'eshes midyanim, than to live with Klal Yisrael, with a wife that's quarrelsome, or beis chaver, and lives in the house of idolatry. So the Shekhinah would rather move away. Mayim korim al nefesh hayefa, like the relief given by cold water on a fatigued soul. A person gets up very tired and he splashes cold water on his face, it revives him. So also shmua taiva me'eretz rechaika. So also when he has a good report from a distant land, he learns about that he's inheriting a relative from far away, or that somebody is alive that he thought he wasn't alive, that also gives the person great relief. And now our adventure for the evening is the 5th perek of Masechtas Eruvin, and I don't need to tell you that Eruvin is one of the harder Masechtas in Shas. It's Ani, Eruvin, Nida, and Yavamis. We start with the 5th perek. Keitzad ma'abrin es ha'orim. How do we measure the 2,000 amas of a city's tchum? In other words, what we have to do is first we draw the border of the city, and then outside of the city you get the tchum of 2,000 amas. So how do we make the border of the city? So here's a big chiddush. If around the perimeter of the city it's not even, but one house is jutting out and one house is indented in. Pagam nichnas, a tower is jutting out. Pagam yaitz, pagam nichnas, a tower is indented in, and a tower is jutting out. Or hayasham gedudyais gevayis asar tfachim, or there are runes that are high 10 tfachim sticking out. Or gesharim, or bridges, or nefashis, or mausoleums that have graves. Sheyesh ben beis dira, there is a place of where a person could stay, whether the toll collector by the bridge or the guard by the kfarim. So we don't say that we draw an uneven line around the perimeter of the city, and we count 2,000 amas from every place of that line. No. We make a box with the side at the furthest point, at the tower that juts out the furthest, at the bridge that juts out the furthest. Now, you'll say, okay, but maybe we should make a circle. Who says we should make a square? Because if we make a square, the diagonal is more. Says the Gemara, when we do the city, we make a square around the whole city, so you benefit the diagonal of the corners. Now, before measuring the tchum, before measuring the 2,000 amas, we give the city an outskirts of 70 2/3 amas, which is called a karpaf. Noisnin karpaf la'ir, we give a outskirts to the city of 70 2/3 amas. Divrei Meir. The Chacham say we don't give a karpaf. The Chacham lo yamru karpaf unless we have two cities that are very close to one another. If two cities are very close to one another, elabein shtei ayoris. If the two cities are very close to Navardik and Shnipishak are very close to each other, im yesh lezu shivam ama v'shirayim v'lezu shiva ama v'shirayim, if between the city is only 70 2/3 for one city and 70 2/3 for the other city, in other words, 141 1/3, then we make the two cities as one. So that the city should be one, and then you get from the border of the two cities 2,000 amas in each direction. They're counted as one. Now, here we have an interesting case of a triangular three cities. We have a triangular three cities. On the bottom of the triangle is city A and B, and at the top of the triangle is city C. Now, if we have three cities in the shape of a triangle, at the bottom of the triangle on one side is A and B, and at the top of the triangle you have city C. If you would imaginarily pull down the city from top to the bottom in between A and B, if there's only Me'av Arbam ve'echadu shlish, if between city C and city B, when it's pulled down to the in between A and B, when C is pulled down between A and B, if there's between B and C no more than 141 1/3, and between A and B, between A and C, and between B and C, there's no more than 141 1/3. It makes the three cities of the triangle into one city. Also, Emtsai, the middle one, makes as shloshton liyos ke'echad, that all three should be considered as one, and we draw a box around the three, and we get 2,000 amas in each direction. That's a very big kula in Erevin. Now, when measuring the 2,000 amas tchum outside of the city, they only measure with a rope that's 50 amas. Not less, because if it's going to be less, if it's, let's say, 25 amas, it will stretch, and there'll be too much of a tchum. Not more than 50 amas. It's more than 50 amas, it's going to be heavy, and it's going to droop in the middle, and you'll get less than the 2,000 amas. Each of the surveyors should hold the rope to their heart. And now, the next part over here is confusing. If they're measuring with a rope of 50 amas, and they reach a valley. Now, do they have to go down diagonally and measure to the bottom of the valley and then measure up to the top of the valley? What about if they come to a bump, to a hump? So if they were measuring Hayamaydet Vigil the guy and they reached a incline, or a fence or something high, Mavliyai, they could absorb it, meaning one person stands on one side of the crater and the other person stands on the other side of the crater, and they just count it from above. They don't have to go down and up. The chayzel also, if it's a hump, they could get two poles and attach the rope to the top of the poles and go over the hump and go over the mound. Now let's say it's very tall and they can't use a pole. It's a big mountain. So they could go to the side of the mountain and measure to the side of the mountain. Or even if it's outside of the city, as long as it's in 2,000 amas within the city, they could go to the side of the mountain when it's finished, measure 50 amas, and then go back to the line. V'chayzer l'midasei. As I said, Higir lahar, they reached the mountain, Mavliyai, if they could take the pole and do it over the mountain, fine. If they can't, they go to the side, as long as when they go to the side, they don't go beyond 2,000 amas. If it's such a big mountain that it goes beyond the 2,000 amas outside of the city, so then they have to use a complicated process, which is called Bezu Amar Reb Daistei bar Reb Yanai, Mishum Reb Meir. Reb Daistei bar Yanai says in the name of Reb Meir, Shamati Shemekadrim Baharim. They imaginarily pierce through the mountain. Now, of course, doesn't mean that they drilled. They didn't have the technology to drill all the way a hole through the whole mountain and stick the rope in. They don't do that. But what they do is they take a rope that's 4 amas. And one person stands on the slope of the hill, on the bottom, and another person stands above him. And the person on the bottom puts the rope to his head and extends it towards the feet of the one that's above him. And they constantly do that method as they go up and down the mountain. And doing that method, they get a measure of the distance without computing the incline. That's a complicated procedure, but trust me, that's how it works. Now, ein moeded in element amumcha. We only measure with an expert. You have to use an expert surveyor. Now, riba l'makam echad or miyat l'makam acher. If he measures from the northeastern side, and the tchum is further, or miyat l'makam acher, but when he checks and he measures it from the southeastern side, it's shorter. Shaymim l'makam sheriba. We give the extra amount. Riba l'echad or miyat l'echad. If one surveyor got more, and one surveyor got less, shaymim l'maruba. We listen to the surveyor that got more. Now, afilu eved v'afilu shifcha, even a eved kanani or a shifcha kananis, ne'monim loimer, is believed to say that I remember adkan chum Shabbos until here is the 2,000 amas. Shaloi amru chacham. This is a institution of the rabbis. Shaloi amru chacham es hadavar lahachmir, to be stringent, el lahakel, but rather to be lenient. Now we're going to see that there's a halacha that you could make an Eruv around the whole city. But you can't do that if it's a city of the rabbin, because we don't want people to forget the din that you're not allowed to carry. So Ir Shel Yochid, a privately owned city. Now in a privately owned city, they didn't make a gzeira. So Ir Shel Yochid v'Nasis Shel Rabbin, an Ir that's privately owned and becomes communal, Ma'arvin es kula, you could make an Eruv on the whole city. But for Shel Rabbim, if it was a communal city, even though it's an Nasis Shel Yochid, it was bought by a baron, Ein ma'arvin es kula, because it remains with the regulation that we're worried that the people might forget that you're not allowed to carry. Elim kein also chutzelo, you have to make an area outside of the area, ke'irish chadosha sheb Yehuda, like a newly populated city of Yehuda, sheyesh bar chamishim diurim, that has 50 residents, divrei Reb Yehuda. Reb Shimon Aimer, you don't have to make such an exclusionary area. It's enough, shalosh chatzeres, 3 courtyards, shel shnei batim, each courtyard having 2 homes. That area has to be left out of the Erev so that there should be a reminder that you're not allowed to carry without an Erev. Mi shahaya b'mizrach. Now here's an interesting case. We know that you can make an Erev Tchuma. Now remember, whenever you make an Erev, normally you get 2,000 amas from in each direction. If you make an Erev, you shift your point of centrality to the place of the Erev, and then you get 2,000 amas in each direction from the Erev and not from your house. So Shmi Shaya b'mizrach, if let's say Barry was in the east, the Amal B'nai, and he tells Azriel, Arvli b'marav, make me an Erev to the west. Or b'marav, he was in the west. The Amal B'nai, and he tells Azriel, Arvli b'mizrach, make me an Erev to the east. Now he thought he would get home in the night. However, he doesn't make it home. So, im yesh heimenu lebeisei arpayim amas, if he could get from the nighttime 2,000 amas to his house, ulei v'ruva yosim mekan, but he can't reach his Erev. Now remember, the Erev only gives you 2,000 amas in each direction. If he can't reach his Erev, the Erev is 2,300 amas away from him, then his Erev is not accessible. So then we say, he definitely didn't want it to be an Erev if it's not accessible to him at the onset of Shabbos. So he's permitted to get to his house, it's forbidden to the Erev. But if, let's say, it's on a diagonal, so he could reach the place where Azi made his Erev, but he can't reach his house. If but his house is further, so then also lebeisa is forbidden to his house, or he is permitted to the Erev, and the Erev becomes his point of centrality. Remember, you get your whole city, 2,000 amas, and then, you get the whole city, and the outskirts of 70 2/3, according to the Tanakama, and then 2,000 amas from there. So anoisin esiruva beibura shalir, if Azriel puts the Erev in the outskirts, he doesn't gain anything. Because anyway, from the outskirts, the end of the outskirts, he gets 2,000 amas. However, if he puts the Erev outside of the 70 2/3 amas, even 1 amma, so he gains an extra amma in that direction, and he loses an amma in the other direction. Mashaniska, the extra amma that he gets in the direction of his Erev, who mafsid, he loses that amma in the other direction, because what he does is he shifts his point of centrality. Now here we have a very interesting case. If, let's say, you have, remember, your city is like Daled Amos. What happens is you have the small city of Salish and the very big city of Munkach. So if Munkach, Salish is absorbed entirely in the Tchum of Munkach. The whole Salish is absorbed in the Tchum of Munkach. So then you get from outside of Salish 2,000 amas. Now that's true even though Salish is 500 amas, because all of Salish becomes like 4 amas, and therefore you would get outside of Salish you would get outside of Salish 2,000. You would get from your city 2,000 amas, plus Salish would be 4 amas. So you would get 2,000 amas, plus if Salish is 500 amas, so it's considered like Dalet amas because it's within your 2,000 amas. So you would get another extra 496 amas outside of your 2,000 amas. That's a little complicated. So let me explain that again. What happens is Munkach gets outside of its city 2,000 amas. If within its 2,000 amas it absorbs the entire city of Salish, then the city of Salish, which is 500 amas, is considered only like 4 amas. So therefore, since it's within its 2,000 amas, we have to deduct 496 amas from the 2,000 amas, because Salish is only considered like 4 amas. So then outside of the 2,000 amas, Munkach gets another 496 amas. But it doesn't work the other way around. Because if from Salish, 2,000 amas only gets it till the middle of Munkach, it doesn't get the whole city of Munkach. Because you only get the whole city like 4 amas if you absorb the entire city. So since from Salish to Munkach only gets you to the middle of Munkach, you don't get the whole city of Munkach. You only get 2,000 amas till where it is in Munkach. And that's what the Mishnah says. Let's see it inside. Anshe Ir Gedaila, the townspeople of Salish, of Munkach, Mahalkin as Kol Ir Katana, could walk through the entire Salish, and it considers only Dalet amas. But Vein Anshe Ir Katana, but the people of Salish, they can't be Mahalkin as Kol Ir Gedaila. They don't get the whole Munkach as 4 amas, since their 2,000 amas does not absorb the whole city of Munkach and only gets them to the middle of Munkach. Ketzad. Now here this is a Achrei Mos, if it's not hard enough. This Mishnah is a Achrei Mos. Ketzad. Mi shahaya be'ir gedaila. If somebody was in Munkach, v'nosan es a ruvay be'ir katana, and he put his eruv in Salish, or be'ir katana, or if he was in Salish, v'nosan es a ruva be'ir gedaila, and he put his eruv in Munkach. Oh, point of centrality, that's different. Once you have the Eruv in the city, the whole city becomes your Dalet amas. Even if you're in Munkach and you're in Salish and you put your Eruv in Munkach, as long as the Eruv is within 2,000 amas from your house, you get the entire city of Munkach and 2,000 amas from it. Ma'alches kula v'chutzala alpayim amma. That's the opinion of Rabbanan. Rabbi Kiva says no. If you put your Eruv in Munkach, you only get from the place of your Eruv alpayim amma. You don't get that the whole city of Munkach is counted like Dalet amas. Amalem Rabbi Kiva, and Rabbi Kiva says, I'll prove it to you. That if you put your Eruv in a cave, and it's a very big cave, you only get from the place of the Eruv el alpayim amma. We don't say that the whole cave becomes your Dalet amas. Amrulai said, they said to him, that's only if the cave is uninhabitable. But if you put an Eruv in the cave and the cave is habitable, Mahalich is kula, you get the whole cave, and outside of it 2,000 amas, and that's the same thing when you put your Eruv In Munkach, you get the whole Munkach and 2,000 amas outside of it. Nimtza kal toicha me'al gaba. We find that the inside of the cave, when it's habitable, is more lenient than the top of the cave. If the top of the cave people aren't living, you only get from the air of 2,000 amas. Inside the cave, if it was habitable, you get the entire cave, and then outside of it, 2,000 amas. Now, the lamoided, if one is measuring his tchum from his place of residence, she'amru noisnu lo alpayim, we only give him 2,000 amas. There, even the Rabbanan Amoida, she'afilu seif midasai kala b'mara, if the measure of his 2,000 amas ends in the cave, he has to stop in the middle of the cave, even if it's habitable, and he doesn't view the entire cave as 4 amas. It's only by an Erev that the Rabbanan disagree. And now we learn the Gemara of Erevin. This is a famous Gemara, Rabbi Say, that impresses upon us that when we learn, we should learn moving our lips. And if possible, it should be audible. Amalei Shmuel Rabbi Yehuda. Shmuel said to Rabbi Yehuda, Shinana, sharp one. Psach pumei kare. Open your mouth and learn the psukim. Psach pumei tnei. Open your mouth and learn the Mishnayos. Ki heichi d'tiskayim bech, in order that you should remember it. V'soyrei chaye, and in order that you should live long. Shenemar ki chayim heim l'moitze'ayim. It is life for those that find the Torah, l'chol b'sorei marpei, and it brings healing to all flesh. Al tikrei l'moitze'ayim, don't read it to those that find it. Al l'moitze'ayim b'peh. When you pronounce it with your mouth, and you say it out loud, then it brings life, and it is Mekayim Bach. You'll remember it. Amar Rav Ami Maidich Siv Ki Noim. It is pleasant Ki Sishmerayim Bebitnecha, when you keep it in your belly. Yikanu Yachtov Al Svasecha. You establish it together upon your lips. Emasai Divrei Torah Ne'imim. When is Torah pleasant? Bizman Shetishmerayim Bebitnecha. When you keep it in your belly. When you keep it in your belly, when you establish it together on your lips. Number one, that you pronounce it, and number two, that you learn in an orderly fashion. There's happiness to a man with the expression of his mouth. How good is a thing in its proper time, that you have an answer to someone's question. When is there happiness to a man? When he has an answer with his mouth. And simcha when he says it, because he remembers it, and it's good because he has an answer. When does a person have happiness with his answer? A thing in its proper time, how good it is. Somebody asked you a question, and you know an answer, how good that is. This matter should be very close to you. In your mouth and in your heart. To do it. When is the learning close to you? When in your mouth and in your heart, you know what to tell people to do. The desire of his heart you have given to him, and the articulation of his lips, should never be withheld. When do you give him the desire of his heart? Of the expression of his lips, he doesn't have to withhold. He doesn't have to keep his mouth shut that he doesn't know the answer. The Torah should be like a bracelet around your neck. If you make yourself like a bracelet, it's loose on your neck, not to choke you, so you act in a loose, conciliatory way to people, an easygoing way to people. And the necklace is under the blouse. So sometimes it's seen, sometimes it's not seen. The Talmud Chacham is often not seen because he's in the Beis Medrash learning. Then Talmudai Miskayim B'yadai. Then your learning will be kept by you. V'im lav, if not, ain't Talmudai Miskayim B'yadai. The learning will not be held with you. Your cheeks are like a furrow of perfume. If you make yourself like a furrow, everybody steps on. In other words, that you're very tolerant. And like perfume, everybody gets fragrance from you, and everybody benefits from you. You teach Torah to people. Talmudai Miskayim, your Torah will be kept. V'im lav, if you don't share it with others, and you're not tolerant, ain't Talmudai Miskayim, you won't keep your learning. Rava Breda Rav Yosef bar Chama Havalei Milsel Rav Yosef Badei. Rava, the son of Rav Yosef bar Chama, Rav Yosef had a tain on him. Kimatam Ali Yuma de Kippur, when it came to Erev Yom Kippur, Omer Ezel Va'afaise, let me go and appease him. Ozel Ashkechei L'Shamei. So Rava Breda Rav Yosef bar Chama found the attendant of Rav Yosef to come mozig lekasa, that he was blending him a cup of wine. So Rava said, let me do it for him. I show him that I'm serving him. Amalei Havli, give it to me, v'imzegeana, and I'll blend it. So Yavle, the attendant, gave it to him. Mazge, and Rava, who was an expert, blended it. Kiditame, when Rav Yosef tasted it, Amadami Hai Meziga, this blend is similar to Meziga de Rava Breda Rav Yosef bar Chama, to the blend of Rava, the son of Rav Yosef bar Chama. Amalei, so he said, Anohu, it is I. Amalei, so Rav Yosef said to him, Loi tesav akarech, don't sit on your feet, don't sit down, ad mifresh li hanei kroi, until you tell me the Agadita on this pasuk. My dichsivu memidbar matana, from the desert is a gift, from a gift is inheritance, and from inheritance is high places, and from high places is a valley. Amalei, so Rava told him, if a person makes himself available, like a desert, everybody could come into the desert, so a person makes himself available to people, the Torah is given to him as a gift. I always thought that this is an answer. Ramosha Feinstein, Zech Tzadik Levrach Zchus Yagan Aleinu, would go to 4 weddings a night. They used to stagger to see the Kedushin that he should go. He usually had a bris in the morning, at least one, and a levaya during the day. And I used to say, how could he go to all these things? What's going to be with his Torah? I mean, isn't there going to be more tshuvas and igris Moshe if he doesn't do all these things? And the answer is because he made himself like a midbar, free for everyone. The Torah was given to him as a matana. He was able to do what most people needed hours for, he was able to do in minutes. Once it was given to him as a gift, Nechalo El. Hashem gave it to him as an inheritance. Shenema matana nachliya. Became shenechalo kel. Once he inherited it from Hashem, oil gdula. He reached greatness. Shenema nachliel b'mais. From nachliel he went to high places. V'im megas libay. But if he becomes haughty, Hakadosh Baruch Hu mashpilay. Then Hashem lowers him, humiliates him. Shenema mibamas hagai. From the high place to the valley. But if he does tshuva, HaKadosh Baruch Hu magviyai, shenema kol gay, every valley, Yinaseh, will be elevated. And now we have a very esoteric piece of Zohar as we continue on with this tremendous Chok. It shall be for you l'chukas olam, as an everlasting statute, b'chodesh hashvi, in the 7th month of Tishrei, be'asa l'chodesh, on the 10th of the month, that's Yom Kippur, ta'anu es nafshei seichem, you shall afflict your souls. Says Reb Shimon ben Yochai, from a pasuk, Reb Chia pasuk, Nafshi ivisicha, my soul desires you balayla, in the night. Af ruchi bekirbi, my spirit in my midst, in my innards, ashacharecha, seeks you out. So there's a grammatical question over here. Nafshi ivisicha, my soul desires you balayla. It should say nafshi ivsach balayla, my soul desires you in the night. Ivisicha sounds like that. It sounds over here, and the Bir Azayah says David HaMelech, even though it's pasuk in Yeshaya. It sounds like David HaMelech says, "Nafshi, my soul, I desire you." So David HaMelech is talking about himself, but doesn't the Pashup Pshat is my soul desires you? So says the Zayah lahaki tana kuchabarichu who Hashem is rucha v'nafsha dekayla. Hashem is the spirit and the soul of everyone, because we know that vayipach ba'apav nishmas ruach chaim, Hashem blew into our nostrils the spirit of life, and mandu nafach me'apei nafach, one who blows from himself. So we are all a chelik elikam imal. We are all a sliver of God. So the ruach and the nefesh is Hashem. The Yisrael Imre, and what Yisrael is saying, nafshi v'ruchi ant. You, Hashem, are my soul and my spirit. Begin kach ivisicha le'edapkabach. I want to be able to cleave to that sliver of Hashem. V'asherecha, I want to seek you, la'ashkacha ru'usach, to find your favor. Rav Yosef explains it differently. The Shata the Barnosh Noim Bar say, when we fall asleep in the night on our bed, nafka nafshe, our soul goes up and rises above. Solka v'asida varnash, and it goes and gives testimony about how we spent the day. Al kol mada ovid b'chol yoma, on everything that we do every day. So gufa amal nafsha, the body says to the nefesh, nafshi ivisicha balayla, my soul looks forward to you, to your return after the night. And af ruchi bikirbi ashacharecha, and my spirit, when it's reunited in me, seeks you out. Davar achar, nafshi ivisicha, my soul desires. Amra knesses Yisrael kamei kuchberichu. Klal Yisrael says before Hashem, nafshi ivisicha balayla, my soul, it desires you in the night, in the gullus. While I am in the diaspora, in the exile amongst the nations, and I work on withholding myself from all sin and not learning from the goyim, even though the kutra bein amamaya, even though I'm tied to the nations. Nafshi ivisicha, my soul desires, begin la'asva la'asra, that I should return to Yerushalayim and I should return to its place. Af ruchi bekirbi ashecharecha, kalaymar, my spirit in my midst seeks you. Kalaymar afal gav the inon mishabdin levonai, even though you are subjugating your children, b'chol shibuda, with all of the subjugations of the gullus. Rucha kadisha lo is minai, you did not remove your spirit from within me. Begin lemishchalach, to hope to you, ulemebad pikudecha, and to do your mitzvahs. Now we're going to get more esoteric. Rabbi Yitzchak Amar, Amri Yisrael kamei kutzeberichu. Klal Yisrael says before Hashem, ba'oi denafshi bi, when your soul is within me, that's nefesh is malchus, is the bechina of malchus. Ivisicha balayla, I desire you in the night. I hope it should be that Malchus desires to unite with Laila, which is the Bechina of Tiferes. My time of Balayla. Ella begin the high nefesh b'hai shaita, the malchus, at the time of the night, itzrach l'chamdolach, desires to be united with Tiferes. Af ruchi bekirbi ashacharecha. Then in the morning, when there is that unification, kad iser bi rucha kad isha ashacharecha, I seek you in the morning, bi'esarusa l'me'ebad rusach, with a desire to do your will when there's a unification of the Malchus and the Tiferes. Ki kasher mishpatecha la'aretz, when your judgment is on the earth. Now judgment is bechinas Malchus, because no, the other way around, sorry. Tiferes is mishpat, because Tiferes is din. So kasher mishpatecha la'aretz, when your mishpatecha Tiferes comes down to earth, which is the bechina of Malchus, so then it's to the right of Malchus, and it tempers the din. Bezimna de mishpat noches ba'ara, when Tiferes comes down to the world and unites with Malchus, levasma olah, to perfume the world. Kedain tzedek lamdu yoshvei tzedek. Then what happens is that righteousness gives lessons to those that live on earth. The Bnei Sevel could then benefit from Malchus, which is also called tzedek. Kelamar yochlin lemizbal dina de tzedek. Since it's tempered with Tiferes, they're able to tolerate the judgment of Malchus. V'lo yishtetze olma minei, and the world will not be destroyed from it. Amos site tzedek lamdu yoshvei sevel kasher mishpatecha la'aretz, when Tiferes comes down to earth. So Reb Chizkiah talks about the unification of Tiferes and Malchus. Nafshi yivisicha balayla do Knesset Yisrael. The Knesset Yisrael is a reference to Malchus. Af ruchi bekirbi ashacharecha do kuch beruchu, that's Hashem, which is Tiferes, and when you have that unification, there is hatzlacha to the world. And now we learn the Musar, which is much more down to earth, and the Musar from Shari Tshuva tells us of the problem of arrogance. A person that's arrogant is a person that thinks he knows everything. He doesn't need to listen to anybody. He knows better than everybody. He lords over people. So says the Shari Tshuva, Hagaiva misaveres kama averis. Arrogance, haughtiness, pride gone amok, encircles many sins. Umagberes yetzaleva adam alav. And it strengthens the evil inclination on a person. Shenema v'ram levavecha, if your heart becomes high, haughty, v'shachakta es Hashem alikecha, you'll forget Hashem. V'nema rumeinayim, haughty eyes, urechav leiv, and an expansive heart. It's me. Near rishar mechatas is like the plowing of the wicked who plant sin. Pirish, hagaiva, haughtiness, near a risham is the plowing of the wicked. Ki mimenu yifru achatam, from arrogance sprouts sins. Kasher nema, like it says, v'ram levavcha, your heart becomes haughty, v'shachakta, and you'll forget Hashem. V'nema begavas rasha yidlakani, through the pride of the wicked, the poor man is ignited. V'nema hadoivris al tzadik osid, he speaks about the ancient righteous person derisively, begava, with horniness. V'nema asher nosnu chitisim be'eretz chaim, these people who lord over people and put the fear of God in the land of the living. Near basada, just like people make plowing in a field, kidei lifrois by hazera, in order to cause the seed to sprout, and to gather in much grain. Kain oisim rishayim as hagava. So also for the wicked, pride is near bilavavam. It's plowing with their hearts. V'zayrim by, and it plants hamachshavas harois, evil thoughts, plotting thoughts. Lahayladu latzmiach ha'averis, to cause to give birth and to flourish sins, shein pri machshavaisam, which is the fruit of their thoughts. The arrogant person is planning to fight with people and to get at the people that they don't like, and to humiliate them and to get rid of them. Val derech hamashal, and like a parable, shenemer hanavi, ufarach, it will blossom kureish like wormwood. That's wormwood is very bitter. Mishpat. Umasha amar chatas. Why does it say near chatas in the singular? Pirish near risham, near chatas. Even though chatas is one, v'kailel chatam rabin. It means a bunch of sin. K'may chatas Yehuda. Even though it's singular, it means all the sins of Yehuda. Oh yeah, perushai. Even though it doesn't say a vav, it's as if it said near, it's plowing many sins. V'chatas, and arrogance itself is a sin. B'chesim vav, even though it doesn't have a vav. K'may shemesh yereach, sun and moon, it means sun and the moon, even though it doesn't say a vav. V'atam, milvad ki agava goremes hachatoim, besides the fact that pride causes many sins, jealousy and hate and machloikis and lashon hara, hamida atzma chatas, the very trait of haughtiness is a sin. K'mayshenema toya b'as Hashem, it's an abomination of Hashem. Kol gevalev, all those that are arrogant. By the way, this is one of the psukim that in the Batei Musar of Slabotka they said 100 times. Toya b'as Hashem, kol gevalev. Toya b'as Hashem, kol gevalev. It's an abomination of Hashem, an abomination. All those that are haughty, they said it 100 times to absorb it. And the arrogant person is delivered into the hands of his evil inclination. Ki ein ezer Hashem imai. Hashem doesn't help him. Achrei Hashem, after he's an abomination. The person that wants to do tshuva, he's required likana, to humble himself. He should practice like the rabbis of blessed memory said, be humble before every person. You know, the only place, Pirkei Avos is about every single midah, the only place where it says ma'oid, ma'oid, not very much, but ma'oid, ma'oid, very, very much. Ma'oid, ma'oid, have a shval ruach. V'yasig mizeh, and when a person acts lowly, it helps shelo yichais, they shouldn't get angry. V'lo yakbid al chaveirav, and he shouldn't mind what his people say. V'gam l'kol advarim, and also all words, even if somebody says something derogatory, asher yishma, that he hears, al yitin libay, he shouldn't pay attention. V'yavar al midosav, he should look away. He shouldn't answer back. Ooh, if you don't answer back, this helps to atone sins. If somebody looks away, they look away from his sins. You look away, Hashem will look away. This is what the Chavetz Chaim says. Oy, this is so precious. This is a door of hope, which is very, very, very valuable. Put your mouth into the earth. Don't answer. That will be a hope. Turn your cheek to get a smack. Be full of humiliation. That will be an atonement. And now we finish off with the Rambam in Hilchas Isurei Bia, where the Rambam is talking about the Isur Yichud. One woman shouldn't be alone even with many men. unless the wife of one of them is sham. A man should not be alone even with many women. Nashim harbim, anashim harbim, but many women with many men ain't choishish liyichud. There's no problem of yichud. If the men are in an outer room and the women are in an inner room, or even the other way, or anashim b'fnim, or the men are in the inner room, anashim b'chutz, and the women are in the outer room, or parsha isha achas l'beina anashim, and one woman separates amongst the men, or ish l'beina anashim, or one man amongst the women, asur mishum yichud. It's forbidden because of yichud. And afilu isha iska yamalachta yamanashim. Even a man, he's a perfume peddler that has a lot to do. His work is with the women. He shouldn't be alone, even with many women. Kate said, yeah, so what should he do? Either take his wife with him, you should take his wife with him, or so he should do a different job. Now, you're allowed to be with two women that hate each other. And therefore, could be alone with two sister-in-laws, because the two sister-in-laws could become rivals. If one of their husbands dies without children, they'll become rivals. So there's a potential for hate. Or with two rivals, with somebody's two wives. Or a woman with her mother-in-law. Or a woman with her stepdaughter. Or a woman with the daughter of her mother-in-law. They hate each other and they won't cover up for each other. They won't cover up with each other. If she has with her a young girl, like a 7-8-year-old, she understands that something is forbidden, but she's still young enough that she won't be attracted to be with the man. Because then the man won't have znus in front of her. The woman won't have znus in front of her because she will reveal what happened, and she won't be tempted to join in the bia. We want to thank everybody for joining us for this really fantastic Chok, 57-minute Chok. Thank you for joining us, and have a wonderful evening.